A student from Dota Academy asked a question which I feel many players struggle with: how to farm or what to do when the map is closed. My reply to this question was that without visually seeing it, there is no general answer for it as every situation is different. And it is dependent upon enemy heroes, how they are playing, what bracket you are in, what your hero is, and the most typical example of being able to play the map effectively from behind is with a hero who is mobile, and anti-mage is probably the best out of them. A few days later, another student posted something similar, and an anti-mage. He had a good net worth at 10 minutes and a decent battle fury timing, but wasn't able to turn it into a win. His exact words are, however, my team crumbled to the enemy team's push and I wasn't able to prolong the game past the 35th minute mark. Would love tips on what I should have done better. Even though anti-mage is probably the worst carry in the game at the moment, I believe any 5k plus MMR player would be able to maintain a 70 to 80% win rate in the lower brackets with him just by being 2 to 3 steps ahead of the enemy. Now let's look at this replay and see how he could have done better. I'm going to watch this game after he gets his battle fury, as it seems like before that everything was fine. So this is the point where the anti-mage gets the battle fury. So before we move further, I want to talk about a few things, right? So anti-mage is kind of a hero who is going to farm 2-3 items and then he's going to be able to fight the enemy, right? So a couple of things that people should understand is what mode you're going to be in when you're playing the game. There's a fighting mode, there's a farming mode. You need to know which one you're going to be in, right? At this point, as an anti-mage, you should be in the farming mode and avoiding fights mode until you get at least a manta, right? So in order to get yourself a manta timing without actually fighting is by split pushing and by making the enemy run around you, right? You want them to waste their time and you want them to chase you around the map so that they don't take your objectives. That's how it should be. So based on that, it just basically means that you need to be able to split push really well. And in order to split push really well, you should understand kill threat, right? So when we look at their heroes, right, it is essentially a pretty decent anti-mage game if you think about it, right? The hero is good versus Murta because she does all magical damage with her ult, and anti-mage is good versus magic damage. She doesn't exactly have a catch for AM. Spirit Breaker is decent versus AM because he can always just charge you and you have no way to just like overcome it other than having a Linkens. That's like the only thing that can help you versus it. And then we have Wraith King. His stun, you can always just reflect. Not exactly reflect anymore because of the facet, but you can just dodge it. And he has nothing on top of that. And you kind of counter that hero by draining his mana. He can't use his ult. All of that shit. And then you have Lycan, no catch. Warlock, kind of no catch. Realistically speaking, they don't really have any reliable catch. Now, the only hero that you have to actually worry about is the Spirit Breaker. But it also depends, right? A solo Spirit Breaker can actually never kill you, if you think about it. He's probably a support hero. Like, if I look at his items, he has Tranquil, Drums, and Wand. So, realistically speaking, this hero should never be able to kill this anti-mage single-handedly. Until he gets a couple of items, which is a different story. But at this point, with the way the game is, he cannot do that. So, he needs a +1 to be able to do that, right? So, we could say that as long as we see other heroes on the map, even if we're charged, we don't really care. So you have to kind of worry about what can stop you from split pushing, and then you have to maximize that. For example, like when you see this map, right, you see Wraith King, you see Warlock standing here pushing this lane, and you have some of these heroes here. You don't see Spirit Breaker at the moment, you don't see Lycan at the moment, and you don't see Murta at the moment. So rest we can just see based on how the game is going. So he's farming this wave, everything is fine. Lycan is here in the vision, he can see it. Realistically speaking, I don't really fuck with this guy. Like, maybe you could, but generally speaking, he doesn't... Like, you cannot trade with a Lycan as an anti-mage at this point of the game. And another thing that you should be willing to do is, like, if we go slightly back, is like, okay, so your job here is just, like, farm as much as you can, right? So when you try to hit this guy or whatever, you're just kind of, like, wasting time. You could spend this time hitting this camp, or hitting this camp, or hitting this camp, right? There's nothing that you can actually do by hitting this guy, right? Your teammates are not going to help you, right? You shouldn't really depend on your teammates to do anything in the game. If you want to win Dota in pubs, I would say is that you should always rely on decisions that you can do by yourself. Like, for example, if you hit this guy and you're like, okay, Shaman will TP and he's going to hex or whatever, there's a very good chance that if he doesn't do it, you might get baited because of it. Like, this is visible that you're charged, he presses ult. And now it's just like, now since he has pressed his ult, even if you blink out, you're going to die because you have vision on you. Then you end up dying here. Okay, so they end up killing you. This is something that you have to kind of change, is that, okay, if I'm in the farming mode, I don't really fuck with the enemy. So if this was like some Wraith King or something, maybe you can do it. Why? Because Wraith King cannot trade with you that well, and if he does try to trade with you, you can just kill him. But this guy doesn't really care about having mana, because he's just gonna right click you. This guy does care about having mana, because then you're gonna burst him and he will die. He doesn't even have a stick to overcome your mana issues. Now let's just fast forward a bit, see what you do after this. So all of your team is here, and you're TPing to the mid wave. I only have like one issue with this TP, which is basically, so when you're like split pushing, having TP scrolls is really important, right? So it's just like when you TP here, you kind of give the enemy the information that you don't have a teleport. So let's say you show bottom suddenly and they make a play at top, you can't really do anything about it. So generally speaking, try to keep your TP saved if you can. At this point, it's just like, this could be good only if you clear this wave and then instantly go and stack this. That's like the sense of urgency that you have at the moment, because if you look at the timer, it's 15:46. So if you kill this creep, now you have to instantly blink here and stack this, because otherwise this TP is worthless. You got like 1 CS, you could just blink to it, and then you will have your TP to do something else. Like for example, you push in bot lane, you force a couple of TPs, couple of guys to go on you. Now suddenly they cannot be top, right? And then you can TP top and just play top for the next 70 seconds and they can't do anything about it. This is why having TPs saved is like a really good thing to do. Yeah, you're farming this. You don't really see anyone on the map. And this movement in its own is like kind of bad, because so one thing is that you should know creep wave timers. So when you're pushing this wave in, you should be willing to know that, okay, so the next wave just spawned, which basically means that the next wave is somewhere around here. And by the time the next wave is going to arrive here, it's going to be in a dangerous position in front of the enemy tower. So what you should do here is just to go and farm the triangle and then eventually push this lane out. Because you could argue that you don't see anyone, but then if you go further in, that's more dangerous. But if you're here, you have vision, so you can always just run out. You see, like, this movement is kind of like being a bit weird. Now you can farm the mid wave because you have shield rune, so it's like doable. But eventually, you're just going to do something else. So at this point here, you see 4 of your heroes pushing this lane in. And it's also something like, okay, when 4 of my heroes are pushing this lane in, they're showing the enemy is going to react to it. So instead of going to the triangle at this point, I would wait and see what happens at top. Like, I would probably just blink somewhere here and just farm this. Just be close to the tower is what I'm going to do. Like, you see one hero here, one hero here. Spirit Breaker has shown, right? So now I know the Spirit Breaker has already shown top. He has already charged my SF, so I'm free to hit this tower. So even if my team loses the fight at top, at least I took a tower and I pushed one lane in, and the enemy has to address that. But when you go back to the triangle at this point, it doesn't help you. It does not help you. And then you could have just eventually just TP'd back here and farmed this. Okay, this is fine. This is still fine. Spirit Breaker showed at top, so we know we cannot be bottom. So at this point, instead of going back, we need to push further in, right? We need to push further in. We saw Spirit Breaker at top. We saw Warlock at top. No TP. TP's on cooldown. Wraith King is mid. The only way you actually die is if you push in super deep. And then there's like another thing that you should always think about. So you need to really think about what bracket you're playing in, right? So if this is like a higher bracket, Spirit Breaker +1 could coordinate and kill you. That's probably what could happen. Very high probability of that happening, basically. But in lower brackets, people are never going to be able to execute that fast enough for you to not be able to dodge it, right? So try to give a bit less respect to the enemy is what I'm going to say. If it means that they have to like make a play that requires multiple heroes to execute something really well. Like right at this point, you're farming these like this part of the map, which doesn't really progress the game. You're just like taking very safe farm from the map. Like you see, there's a fight going on here. So if you're not going to join this fight, you need to do something else that basically progresses the game. So now what you need to do here is you have to push this wave in, and then another time again. Right? You need to constantly force them to go on you, right? If you never push this wave in, they never feel pressured. At this point, you're the one who's being pressured. Fight going on top, you're pressured. Someone's pushing in mid, you're pressured. Someone's pushing in bot, lane's pushing in bot, you're pressured. You need to apply that pressure to the enemy such that they have to address that pressure. Like when a fight is happening at mid top, and this guy's showing like here, you need to push this lane in. And now I would go even further in because I know what is happening here. The Spirit Breaker showed, but when you go back here, this wave is just going to come back. You need to push this wave all the way into the enemy tower, and you don't have to hit it. You don't have to hit it. All you have to do is just like pressure the enemy lane such that your creeps hit the enemy tier 2. Now you're at mid, you're farming this, and now you're going to go back. Like you have to be really fast at what you're doing. You should already know what you're doing. You're going to stack this. But then again, look at this bottom lane, constantly pushing into you. I haven't seen this lane hit the enemy tier 2 at all. Like, if you want to play anti-mage, you want to win with anti-mage, you have to kind of man up a bit. You have to kind of think of how you die. Like, you see the Spirit Breaker just like literally never pressing charge on you. He only presses charge when he sees something happening in terms of a fight. So what you can do is that you can push this lane and super further in and then just like run back towards your side. Like, the gameplay should be something like you pushing this lane in, you pushing another wave in, and not being close to this tower such that they can TP and react with the Spirit Breaker. You need to be like a bit towards this side because this is further from the tower. You push in the wave and then you run all the way back towards your triangle. So even if the SB charges you, it's just going to be him alone because no one else in his team can move in the same pace except for Lycan, right? But if Lycan tries to do that, you can kind of evade by just blinking out. But for this, you have to be a further step ahead. Now you see this rating is feeding. Very good chance someone is going to be charged because that's just how it works, right? That's just how it works. And at this point, it's like a fight is happening at mid. You have two choices. You can either join this fight if you want, or you can push this lane in completely. So if your mode is just like, yeah, I'm not going to touch a single hero in this game until I get Mantha, you need to go further in. Like, rather than TPing in here and trying to fight, you should go further in. Like, as an anti-mage, I would only TP into fight if it's like they're diving in and then some heroes like really low mana and I can just mana void them. At this point, there's no one who's like this. Like, I see that you push this wave in and it's fine. Maybe that was your idea, that if you lost this fight here, they will take this tower. So I need to be able to cut this wave so they don't do that. But here's the thing, right? You guys have fortification. So kind of like you can get rid of this wave. The other thing that you should understand is that if a fight is happening here and you're already pushing this lane in and like hitting their tier 2, after winning this fight, you give them a choice. You give them a choice that you can either take my tier 2, which you're going to be late to because I'm already at your tier 2, or you have to come back and defend this. So they're just going to come back to you. That's just how it's going to go, right? But when you TP in here, you kind of like waste your time. And that doesn't happen. Like, the whole point of playing from behind is that you make the enemy run circles around you because they cannot exactly catch you and kill you. Like, you don't have to be here. You have to be at bottom. Let them do whatever the fuck they're doing here, right? It doesn't matter if this guy's standing here doing whatever. You guys have fortification, you guys have shrapnel. Even if your team dies, you can fortify this tower, buy yourself some time, and then eventually, even if this tower dies, they cannot come high ground, right? So the game is not over. What you have to do is constantly pressure this lane and make them come to you. And also, other thing is that if you're constantly pressuring this side of the map, you also get access to all of these camps, which will automatically make your GPM higher and you will have more net worth. Like, your heat map is basically a triangle and this the second camp. And maybe like something around here. Your heat map doesn't go to this side of the map at any point. And when there's no pressure applied, the enemy is like, oh yeah, we'll do whatever the fuck we want, right? Now we know that this guy is dead, right? And we don't have to really do anything about it. Now, what we have to do is that we have to go push this wave in. This wave should always be pushed into the enemy. They have to constantly address this wave again and again. But they're not doing it, right? They don't care because they don't feel pressured. Anti-mage is all about this. You have to just like understand what kills you, and then you just have to make it so that it doesn't happen. And the thing is, this map is not closed out. You guys, they only have a 3k lead, right? And this map is only going to be closed out in lower brackets is when you make it feel like it's closed out. Like, right now, the way you're playing is you're making yourself feel that the map is closed even though it's not. If you have this understanding that this is what my game plan is, this is how I'm going to make them run around me, which makes space for not only myself, but for my team. Like, right now, you have a Manta, now you're open to joining fights, but it's still going to be something like, yeah, I'll join a fight if it happens near my tower by TPing in, but I'm not going to force something to happen. Alright, going top. This is good. I like this. Alright, you can push the next wave as well. Like, you see here, they go on you with 2 heroes, but you still don't die. It's just impossible for them to kill you. That's just how it is. I would probably try to go on this guy with Manta here. But yeah, you have to do something to make them feel pressure. Right now, it's not happening. Like, I would just go here. Like, who gives a shit? Try it, right? Be a bit aggressive. Like, if you understand that what kills you, what doesn't, you should be fine doing this. Fight happening at mid. Golem is used. Charge is used. But mana void is really poor. You can't fight anymore. So you just have to, like, run. Like, this fight should be won by you guys. Mainly because Warlock is dead. Right? Even though your centaur dies, it's fine. Like, right now, all you have to do is this guy's charge is used. This guy's stun is used. There's nothing that they can use to kill you. Right now, all you have to do is blink in, press Manta on this Wraith King. Eventually get rid of all of his mana and press Mana Void. He has like Shard, but it's fine. Like, you could just like man up here and fight with your Manta. But you guys are probably gonna lose this fight. But yeah, you have to like not stay here anymore. Like if you're not willing to fight anymore, go to a side lane and push it. Because if they're already at your tower and you're not at their tower, they are free to just come up high ground or just take this tower. But if you're pressuring something alongside what they're pressuring, like let's say they're here after winning a fight and you're already here, or like already this wave is pushed up to this point, they will have to go back. That's just how it is. If they don't go back, you're just gonna trade a tower. And the good thing is that while you're trading this tower, you're also getting a lot of farm, but 4 of them are committing to 1 tower, which means they're getting less farm than you are. Okay, push this lane in. Now watch what is going to happen. Is anyone going to address this pressure? Like, let's just look at this. No one does it, right? So you can just literally keep doing this, and eventually something's going to happen. Like at this point, I feel like you're too scared of the Spirit Breaker because you don't understand that he cannot solo kill you, and if he wants to kill you, he needs multiple heroes to be with him, which is unrealistic because this guy can charge you, but he has nothing after that. He has nothing, right? He has no backup. It's like, okay, yeah, because no one can match his speed. And the other thing is that when this thing happened, I don't think you should turn back here because the Spirit Breaker is only going to charge you if there's other heroes near him. So you don't want to fight. Like at this point, you should just like get out. You cannot fight them 5v5, especially when they have ages. So what you're looking to buy here is not a Linken's because Spirit Breaker technically isn't a problem. Because every time he has charger, you didn't die. The only time you did die here was with the Lycan, right? So if you play it smartly and you're looking at the map and you're kind of predicting how they can move, is that you can have this idea that Spirit Breaker can actually never kill you because he's never going to have someone who can match his speed and can actually just like change turn and kill you. So what I would buy here is a Butterfly because they have physical damage. Wraith King physical damage, Lycan physical damage, Murta physical damage, right? And with Butterfly, I can also just like push faster. I can take towers. I have more damage, more attack speed. I have evasion. So many things helps me fight as well. So when this fight happens, it's like, okay, they have ages. We don't want to fight. We can just go bottom or top or anything, right? Just go and cut a wave. Do something. This is a baby Blink probably going to die for it. So yeah, this is like the main issue here is that you're kind of not doing anything such that they have to like basically address your pressure. Like for example, they charge you here. Let's look at this again. Now you can just go back. It's just like you can hit him a couple of times, but when you see this, when he presses golem, now you're out. Now you're out and you're not going back in. You're going to go push bottom. Because if a fight happens there, I'm going to tell you 2 things there, right? So some people don't understand this, but when you stand here with your team, you're kind of giving them the indication that you want to fight, right? And when they get that indication that you want to fight, they're like, okay, we're strong. We can fight. But if you just like go away from here, they might think that, okay, yeah, this guy is not here with us, so we should probably not fight. And the other thing is that you guys still have fortification. So if you just go bottom and constantly push this lane out, by the time they get to your high ground with whatever they have, you could go something like push this lane until this point and then run mid and cut the next wave. And with the fortification, you can just like get rid of their first wave and they can't end. But when you fight here, like this, and then you die, this is where they can just come high ground and you have no solution for it because you died. But let's say this wave was pushed in and you survived. Even though your team died, you survived. And you're just like farming somewhere around triangle or even here. You can cut the next wave. Easy, right? Now the game is still on. But in this whole scenario, you farm like an additional 2k gold. And when you farm the additional 2k gold, you bought time for yourself. And this Aegis is eventually going to expire, right? And then you can fight after that. But when you died here, now this game is like really hard to win. Like in your games, in lower MMR games, people don't pressure at all. Like players, carry players especially, they just feel pressured because they're not doing anything. Like in this game, you have so many opportunities as an AM, so you just like understand what kills you and what doesn't. And then with this map that feels close, you can kind of open it by yourself if you think about it. If this wave is constantly pushed into this, these 2 camps, they just get opened automatically. I haven't seen you farm these camps at all because you're scared, right? But if this wave is pushed until here, and someone is going to show, right? Because when you push in waves, someone does show. That gives you information and you can just like have this area to yourself. Like you need Butterfly into Abyssal in this game. That will allow you to just like jump Murta and kill him. But the way this game is right now, you cannot do it. I feel like you're too scared to play versus Spirit Breaker, even though the Spirit Breaker is not doing anything. And now it's just like, even now it's not ideal to just like go and fight them. Like you need to be on their towers before they're on your towers. Otherwise, they're just gonna like ram your buildings and you can't do anything about it. Yeah, it feels like now that the game is like impossible to win. Like, you have 14k net worth at 30 minutes, and the Lycan is really fat. They have 20k lead. You cannot really come back. I mean, you still can come back, I would say, but it's not gonna happen if you're gonna play the same way you are right now. You have to kind of man up, eat the charge or whatever. The thing is, let's just say hypothetically you do die while you do this. Let's say you manned up, you push this lane until this point, you're hitting this tower, they charge you, and in some way they just like, they do something and you just like end up getting caught and you die. Even if you die here, right, they have to push all the way till here. They won't be able to do it fast enough. Like, you dying here in front of your base is 1000x worse than this, because this is like a really big distance from this tower towards your base. You have to consider this. But if you like don't man up and kind of think about what kills you and what doesn't, things are never gonna change. Like, at this point here, like, I haven't seen you touch a single tower since you got Battle Fury. Like, this tower's like the same HP. This tower's like the same HP. This tower's like full HP if you think about it, right? We got Battle Fury at 15 minutes. And in the last 15 minutes, this tower got 0 damage on it. Not even from creeps. Right? That tells you a lot about the state of the game. Yeah. You could still come back. We see like this guy charges you and then what? What the fuck happens? You don't die. Right? Who cares? But the thing is, when they did charge you, space. Now they're just like running around the map wasting time when they could just end the game. They're gonna push in mid. Now you can push in another wave because they already showed their cards at bottom, right? Like, let them run around the map. Like, no one in the enemy team can move at the same pace as you do, and they cannot move at the same pace as the Spirit Breaker does. So in order for them to kill you, is that when they see you doing this, they have to already TP here and kind of predict that you're gonna be here. That's the only way they can kill you. And players in the lower bracket, they never play this fast, and they will never do it. That's just how it is. And at this point, like, when the enemy team, you can see all of them at here, you should hit this tower. Make them run back to you here. If they don't run back to you here, at least you push in a wave and you applied pressure. If they do come back to you here, at least they didn't come high ground and you bought more time for your team. Like, this wave cutting is fine, but then they're already here, right? So it's just hard. Yeah, and at this point, it's just like, you can't play this game anymore, right? So yeah, I feel like this is what you could have done in this game. A lot of different things that you could have done. This is why I mentioned in the reply of this question that you have to absolutely be mobile in the game to be able to play closed out maps, and you have to understand what kills you and what doesn't and abuse the fuck out of it. Like, in this game, you could have abused a lot of different things, which I did mention, right? It's just like, yeah, until Manta, I cannot fight. And the idealistic approach to games is that while people may think that when anti-mage is split pushing, he's kind of AFK farming, that's not the case. When you farm your triangle like you did like 10 to 15 minutes ago, like if I go to a random point, like here, when you're farming like this, right? You're farming this here. This is what AFK farming is. Because this doesn't progress the game. This progresses the game. When you push this wave in, you apply pressure. This tower gets damaged. The enemy reacts to it. Something happens. But when you farm this, no one cares. So when your anti-mage is doing something like pushing this wave in, he's not exactly AFK farming. He's applying pressure. It's just like, even if the enemy team wins a fight here, at least you took this tower, at least forced fortification, at least you did something. But eventually, it's just like, if the enemy doesn't address you and you're just like free to do whatever you want, then you'll have a lot of items, right? And in a game like this, when your hero is good, when you have a lot of items, you will obviously just like run them down in the next 5 to 10 minutes. And if they do address what you're doing, you're just gonna automatically be more farmed than the enemy. Why? Because they're running around chasing you while you're blinking and farming the entire map. That's just how it is. If you wish to significantly improve in Dota, I offer coaching packages that will significantly improve your MMR as they have for other students. If you're interested, you can either join my Discord or check out my website at PainDota.com. There's currently a discount going on for the Immortal package and it's on the last slot. If you're interested, do check it out before it's too late. Lastly, I want to tell you about Dota Academy, a private community I started with 2 other coaches who are 12k and 11k respectively. In the academy, there are 4 classes per week on every role where you can learn a lot. Not only that, if you gain the highest amount of MMR at the end of the month out of all the students, you can avail a free coaching session of your choice from any of the coaches. If you want to join Dota Academy, click on the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video and it was helpful.